Hi, Lesley.
Hi Vic, how are you?
I'm good. Oh, Lesley, thank you for being here. So, I'm Vic, and I'm a youth trainer and specialist and youth director of the Maximizing Performance for Children and Youth program. I've been personally trained by the founder and the creator, Master Delpe, who's a modern sage and life mentor. And through all of the teachings from his wisdom, from the Eastern wisdom, and what he's done with the Western science and practicality, he has brought that together and brought a comprehensible and exciting curriculum for children and youth to help them develop their 5 levels of intelligence. So we have different levels of intelligence that we like to develop, and one of them is on the level of wisdom. So I brought in Lesley today because I wanted her to share with us her wisdom. She's been in a lot of connections with business people, entrepreneurs, different professionals, helping them through self-care, self-development, and self-mastery. So today we get a chance to talk to her and also learn more about the 7 things she wished she knew when she was younger. So again, Lesley, I give you the floor and welcome to the IG Live today.
Okay, thank you so much, Vic, for that very wonderful introduction. And uh, when you said to give you 7 tips, it's actually very challenging to just limit it to 7 tips because there's so much that I want to share. But like what you said, I'm Lesley Geronimo. For those who are watching from your end, I'm privileged enough to talk to you, to everyone, and share my insights and my wisdom. And in the past years that I've been personally trained by our founder, Master Delphi, who is a global leadership expert and mentor to CEOs and billionaires around the world. So, like what Vic said, I am one of the mentors here, and I help my clients who are business leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals with their self-care, self-development, and self-mastery. So I've always been in search for deeper truths in life, and my constant search led me to where I am right now. And also, I'm very happy to share these with everyone tonight.
It was really funny because they were like, "Oh, why are you getting someone to give advice about when they were younger? She seems like she's like 20 years old." So I was laughing because you're actually not 20 years old. And I was like, "Oh, maybe next time I should invite Lesley back to give us her wisdom on how to stay more youthful inside and outside."
When I shared your post, people were actually saying, "Wait a minute, Leslie, aren't you in your 20s?" I'm like, "Oh, really? I look like I'm in my 20s." By the way, I'm actually not in my 20s. I'm also not in my early 30s. I'm actually 39, going on 40 this year. Yes, I'm
Wow.
turning 40,
Look,
the big 40. So how time flies by.
let us get this show on the road, and please give us your first tip or thing that you wish you learned when you were younger.
So the very first one, of course, one of the important things is to know thyself. I think it was Hippocrates who said that, the know thyself. It was a popular quote from before, because that's a very basic foundation, right? You need to know who you are and what you are. Actually, it's not just the who you are, right? Because most people say, I need to know who I am. But there's actually two sides of it, the who you are and the what you are. And there's actually a difference. Can you guess what the difference is, Vic?
Can you tell us?
All right, I will just share with you what's the difference. So most people, when they describe who they are, they would say, I'm a mother, I'm a student, I'm a lawyer, I'm this, I'm that, I achieve this, I have this beautiful car, I have this mansion, I have this siblings around the world, something like that. So those are actually not just who you are. You're actually describing what you are. Like all of these achievements or accolades or external factors or material things. So that's actually separate what you are. But who you are is something different than that. It's more your virtues, your higher principles, you as a soul. So that's another whole discussion. But for now, That's what I can say. That there's a difference between who you are and what you are. And if I were in my early 20s again, I would have, sat down with myself and asked myself, who am I aside from what am I? And I would also, how companies do the SWOT analysis. Are you familiar with the SWOT? The
Yes,
strengths,
strength,
weaknesses,
weakness,
opportunities, and
opportunities.
threats.
Yes.
So usually businesses or companies say that, right? To
Mhm.
assess where they're at and to know the steps on what they need to take to get to their next level of development. So why not do that on yourself as well? So
Mhm.
if I were young again, if I were 20, in my 20s, early 20s again, I would, assess myself, like what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses that I need to work on that are blocking me from my next steps in life, what are my opportunities to propel to the next step, and what are my threats. But of course, when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't thinking this way yet. But to those who are listening right now who are still in their 20s, I would recommend, highly recommend, ask yourself that question. Who am I? Aside from what am I? And what are my strengths, my weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? So that's number
That's
one.
really nice. Yeah, I think that a lot of people, young people, need that. Even for me, I'm so actually lucky that I got to learn that profiling technique of the SWOT on your own personal health. So I would say that it's something I haven't learned in traditional school. So as I progressed in this path of self-mastery and self-discovery, it was, I would say, a good luck charm for me because I could see where I was now and who I wanted to be in the future, not only in terms of my professional or career roles, but as a person, what was my goal as my own inner development and contribution to others. So I think that in the future we will have that as a curriculum as soon as possible so that a lot of young people will avoid those mistakes. So now we're excited. What is your tip number two?
So my tip number two, you know how people always say they should have work-life balance? So it's usually work
Mhm.
and family balance. But what I realized or what I discovered and learned in my training under Master Yoga is that we actually have five key areas of life that we need to balance. Not just the work, not just the family or the life. We call it life, right? So it's not just the work life. So we have the family and home, we have the career and work, we have the social life and environmental contribution, we have the health and recreation, and we also have the spiritual life. So those are five different areas that we need to assess where we're at, and we need to see, how are we really doing in these different areas. When I was young, in my early 20s, I was still in the path of happiness. So it was still on the path of happiness. And as I went to my late 20s, it went to a path of fulfillment. But looking back, I was more on focusing on the last three areas of my life, which is the social life and environmental contribution, the health education, and the spiritual life. But I neglected the family and home and the career and work. So for those who are watching right now or still in their young age, I would recommend that you sit down and get a piece of paper and make us draw a circle, and as if it's a pie chart, make so if you have a piece of paper there, Vic, I would recommend you do this.
Yeah,
So
I drawn
draw a
it.
circle, like draw a
Yes.
circle, and then
Okay.
um, there you go, there's a circle, and then try to assess how big is the piece of the pie for each area of your life. For example, the family and home. Is it like this much of that circle? Or is it half of the circle? Or is it zero of the circle? So the family and home, the career and work, the social life and environmental contribution, the health and recreation, and the spiritual life. If you were to draw your circle, how would it look like? So it's a good exercise to do to see where you're at. I mean, you can share your
I haven't
circle
done
or
that.
not. It's up to you. Sure.
Maybe not. Maybe next time. But actually have a question. For the circle, when you plot your circle, is it ideal that every area should be equal, or is it sometimes unequal?
Well, actually, it depends on the state or the level of development of the person, right? So there are people who are still in that, let's say, path of success. So you would see their circle with their career and work really big, like maybe three-fourths of the pie, or okay, maybe half of the pie. So it depends. So as you evolve as a person, your circle evolves as well. So there are certain parts of the circle that will be bigger than the others. And like what I mentioned, others they start with the path of success. And as they evolve, they strive for the path of balance in these five areas. And as they evolve further, they go to the path of fulfillment and later on to the path of enlightenment. And as you get more and more evolved, your circle will become more of a just a circle, no more lines dividing it. So I guess that's how I can simplify my illustration of the different areas of your life. So the more evolved you are, the more synchronized the different areas are. So again, for tip number two, balance the five key areas of your life. And how do you do that? Sit down, assess where you're at in these five different areas that I mentioned, and then from there, see what needs to, which parts you need to work on. So that's
I
number
think
two.
this is really, yeah, this is like a game changer because we've all been going through that kind of thing where you're going for work and life balance. And then we see that there are actually three more keys of our life that we've been missing. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine if people are only working towards their career and their family, how much they're actually missing. They forget their health,
Mm-hmm.
their contribution, and then you also said spiritual life. Can you actually
Mm-hmm.
expand more the spiritual life? Is it only spiritual or is it religious? What's the difference?
Okay, so you can be spiritual and religious. The religious is more of what I've noticed is more of the traditions or the external things that we do. The spiritual is more of the inward thing, your understanding of your who you are and your connection to the divine or your higher self. So the spiritual aspect is not just in the five areas. It's not just about going to church or anything like that. It's also engaging in different activities that will grow you spiritually, grow you as who you are, grow you into with your character, building into creating, into developing your higher virtues. So there are different aspects that play a role in that spiritual life. So it's not just the traditions or the rituals, but it's that one.
Great. So we have already two tips from you, Lesley, and now can you give us the third?
Okay, so for those who are just joining right now, I've given two tips because Vic here, because there's a lot, some people are coming in just now. So Vic here was asking me for seven tips. The first tip was know thyself. The second tip is balance your five key areas of life. Now, the third tip is have a purpose or a North Star. So this one, it's like it sounds big, right? But it's actually important to have a purpose or a higher purpose for that matter. Because when you have a purpose, you're living deliberately. You're not just merely existing. Everything that you do every day is guided by this North Star. And it's also good to have that North Star because no matter what happens around you, like for example now, with the uncertain times, with the difficulties and challenges, if you have that North Star, you will be unwavering. You're more focused and determined to keep on going because you have that to guide you, that North Star. And I recall when I was in my early 20s, like what I mentioned earlier, is more of the path to happiness and making other people happy. So back then, my purpose was, I even remember that I was following this quote by John Eldridge. My quote was, ask not what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs are people who are alive. So my goal or my mission before was to ignite as many hearts as possible to come alive. So that was my goal, my mission before. So it's more of like more still individualistic, sort of. But of course, I was doing things to make people come alive, right? And as I evolved in my late 20s, from from creating this group called the Happy Heart Events, because I want to make hearts happy. I started this initiative called the Soul on a Mission. So it's just interesting to see how I evolved before. From Happy Hearts events, I created Soul on a Mission because I realized, I guess, without knowing it, that at first you start with this much, and then as you evolve, you make your reach bigger and further, and you do greater service. So from the heart, I went to the soul, something like that. So for those who are listening here or watching right now, my tip number 3 is have that purpose or a higher purpose for that matter, and just have that focus and determination and willpower. And later on, I'll say other things to achieve that purpose.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
do you have any tips, Lesley, on how we can get started? Because one day think, oh, I need to have a purpose. It seems such like a very big, like, broad task. So how do we start from today and anchor something that we can start to build towards our purpose? Is it that we just keep seeking and finding until we find our purpose, or how does it work?
Okay. Well, in my experience, well, that's my answer will also reveal my other tip, but okay,
Other
I will
tip?
still say it's okay. But in my experience, like what I was telling you earlier, I started with the igniting people's hearts, right? And then awakening souls in my late 20s. And then as I was evolving, I was always searching for different mentors, different teachers, just feeding my soul all the time. And I realized that as I became more and more ready, the more and more advanced mentors or teachers appeared. So when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And I was blessed enough to graduate from grade school, high school, college, and now I'm on the master's degree. That's how I can give an analogy of it. So this purpose, as you feed your soul or as you evolve your consciousness, more scaffoldings unfold, and you have that sense of knowing of what you need to be doing, of doing more outside than just fulfilling your own needs. So
Mhm.
you will realize that aside from meeting the needs of your family or your own circle, your own like your parents or your friends, you realize that you have to do a bigger reach, like to the community, to the society, or to the world. So as you evolve, having a mentor, which is my tip later, also helps you get to realize what that purpose is or higher purpose, and also realizing it with a group. But anyway, that's for later.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, we do a lot of this kind of work also with the youth under the Maximizing Performance for Children. Sometimes we have that self-love, and then we have the self-confidence, the self-esteem, and the self-value. Now these days you see a lot of people going for self-love, 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 which is good. Of course, you have to love yourself, take care of yourself so that you can serve others. But there comes a point when the self-love becomes too much and you forget you have to build your self-confidence, not from your own like confidence in knowing how good you are at something, which is also good, but people who want to find self-confidence sometimes have to go first for self-value. Now, self-value comes when you find that you are useful or you're functional, that you can help people. So sometimes we say before, if you cannot love yourself first, love others more and more and more. That will increase your self-value, which will also increase your self-esteem, your self-confidence. And self-love comes naturally without forcing it. through makeup routines, hair routines, and things like that. So the inner beauty will come out naturally. So for those coming in, Lesley just shared with us some really great tips. The first one was know thyself. The second was balance your 5 key areas of life. And the third was have a purpose or a North Star. And next, we have the fourth tip from Lesley.
Okay, so tip number four. Tip number four is balancing also or developing your 3 virtues for success and fulfillment. How I wish I knew back then when I was younger that there are these 3 virtues for success and fulfillment. So the first one is the willpower. Second one is love, wisdom, and third is creative intelligence. So willpower is the stamina, vitality, that ability to sustain your focus to achieve your vision. So love, wisdom is your compassion, understanding, altruism, benevolence, and creative intelligence is the power of your mind. So any imbalance of these 3, so if this is the willpower, this is the love, and then this is the creative intelligence, any imbalance of the 3 causes weaknesses. So for example, I'll give you an example. If you have too much willpower and no love, then you're a dictator or bossy. If you have too much love and then no willpower, then you tend to become a victim. And if you have too much creative intelligence or too much power of the mind, but no love, then you become greedy or lonely because you don't have that emotional intelligence. So that's just an example. So how I wish when I was younger, I knew this so that as early as in my early 20s, I could have worked on these 3 aspects of my life, aside from my 5 key areas. How I wish I was able to work on these 3 things so that I could have, reached more my highest potential at an earlier age. And I could have made more or greater service much earlier. So that's my tip number 4.
So you said again, you have willpower, love, and light. So you said that people have different ratios of these. How does someone who has more of something and less of something, how do they balance out their triangle or trinity?
Okay, so actually that will be answered in my next tip.
Okay, I won't go further.
We can go to that later. But yes, that is a good question. But just to summarize that, it's good to have that discerning heart, discriminating mind, and the willpower to sustain your focus in achieving your vision. So to answer your question, this goes. Yes, I think you're reading my mind here. So this brings us. Huh?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so this
yeah,
brings
those
us
come.
to. Oh, sorry. I think the internet is like overlapping.
Oh yeah, it's just cutting. But anyway, to those coming in, I'm here interviewing Lesley. She's a leadership and life coach, and she just shared with us 4 tips or things that she wished she knew when she was younger. And now she'll be sharing the 5th one. So do you want to give a quick rundown of the first 4?
Okay, so again, yes, number 1 is know thyself, balance your 5 key areas of life, have a purpose or a North Star, and develop your 3 virtues for success and fulfillment. So those are the top 4. I mean, the first 4. Number 5 is how I wish I knew when I was younger that we actually have power centers for virtue development that can help in virtue development, like what you were asking me earlier. Because when we were in school, we only studied human anatomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned there's actually an energy anatomy. It's not just the organs that we see, but there's also the energy anatomy, like the different auras or different energy bodies, which is another whole discussion for next time. And then we also have different power centers or energy centers that act like switches to your different body systems, and also act as switches to develop your virtue. Like, for example, the willpower. There are certain energy centers that you can activate that will
Mhm,
stimulate or develop willpower in you, or also the love, wisdom, virtue. There are certain
mhm,
energy centers again that you can um, stimulate or activate to develop that virtue. So and so forth and so on. We actually have a course on that. If our viewers here want to learn more about it, we have a book about it. It's called The Hidden Dangers of Yoga and Meditation. You can learn it there. We also have the Be Well Science Basic, where you can learn the different energy centers and different energy bodies, and how you can actually heal also using these different energy centers. So that's a whole different that's a whole discussion that will take maybe a whole day. But for now, that's my tip number 5.
So you said energy centers, chakras, auras. Is that only for mystical people to learn, or can people, let's say, who are in the business world, can they learn?
It can be learned by anyone. I actually am not a mystical person, so I actually learned this, and because it's science based. Like what I said earlier, there's human anatomy and there's energy anatomy. There's the whole explanation behind this whole thing. It's not just like a mythical thing that we just came up with. So just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Like gravity, you don't see it, but it's there. Also with energy and the energy center, you don't see it, but it's there. Like for example, I'll just give you a quick example. For example, the emotional energy body. If you are sad, or if somebody in the room is sad, you somehow also feel sad.
Mhm.
Or if somebody is like really mad, you somehow feel a little agitated. So that's an example of how you experience the emotional energy body. Because you, even though you're not connected with that other person physically, you are energetically being affected by it, and that's the energy, one of the energy
Uh,
bodies. So that's just an
so that's
example.
why they say, like, what do you call that? The vampire, the suckers in the room, the ones who drain your energy.
Yes, it's true. Or another example. For example, if you're thinking of someone, and then that person suddenly would text you or would suddenly call you. So
Mhm.
probably you were thinking that person picked up that you were thinking about them, and that's an experience of the mental energy body. So who knows? Maybe the people who are always calling you, they're always on their mind, right? So
Maybe.
yeah. So that's something that how I wish I learned when I was in my early 20s, so that I could have started developing certain virtues in myself through these power centers.
Okay, so that's great. So we have 5 great tips from you. Now, please, we're so excited to hear what you
Okay, so number 6. Wait, I kind of lost you a bit. Did you say number 6? Is that what you said? I lost you a little bit.
yeah, number 6, number
Okay,
6.
so number 6. Aside from the power centers that I wish I knew back then, how I wish I also knew that there are different universal laws that we should follow or discover, so that we can flow more and maximize our highest potential in life. For example, the one that you read in the Bible, you reap what you sow. So that's a very basic golden rule, or a law, right? So it's similar to the law of karma. So the law of karma, I know the word karma has a negative connotation for some people, but it's not just a negative thing. Karma can be good and it can be bad. So like with you reap what you sow, what you do, good or bad, comes back to you later on. So my tip there is always do what's good and always do what's right. And
Mhm.
later on you will reap the benefits. Not just because you're not just doing what's good or what's right to reap the benefits, right, later on, but it's because that's the right thing to do. So that's one of the right. So it's a plus that something good will happen to you later on. So that's one of the universal laws that I I recommend for people to understand that you reap what you sow. And also, there's this golden rule before that people always talk about the do unto others what you want others to do unto you, right? So something like that
Mhm.
also. Just put out what you want to receive, or give more than you receive, or give what you want to receive. So it's all um, interconnected. And again, there's just different universal laws that we also have here that you can learn about. But that's again a whole day of discussion. But these are the things that I think would be easier to apply right away.
So
Um,
I have a question. So does
sure.
this the law of karma, does it connect to maybe what people know today also as the law of attraction?
So the law of attraction, most people think if they think about things that they want, they'll automatically get it, right? Because that's the book, The Secret. If you're familiar with the book The Secret, or it was even a movie, The Secret. They talk
Yes,
about the law of attraction, but that's not the complete formula in getting what you want. It's not just about thinking of what you want and attracting it in your life. It's not that. There's also the different laws, like the law of entitlement, the law of economy. Like, do you have enough, shall I say, good equity to receive what you want? Is this thing that you want really for your good and for the good of your whole life? Um, have you been doing things to deserve this thing that you want? And so there are different other things that we need to consider in terms of the law of attraction. And just to add to the different universal laws, so like what I mentioned earlier, the law of economy. So what you save now, you enjoy later, or you waste now, you will have lack of later. So it's good to study the different laws of the universe so that you would avoid blunders or delays in your growth or in a smoother flow of your
Wow, so much wisdom, Lesley.
life.
So we have those 6 tips from you, and now we are leading up to the last tip. Can you please share this one with us?
Okay, so the last, but I think the most important tip, well, actually, everything I shared are very, very important, but this one is very, very, very important. Have a mentor. Have a mentor who will guide you in your development. Whatever stage you're at, whatever path you're on, have that mentor who will really stretch you, who will help you with your capacity building, who will help you see your spots, your blunders, so you can avoid blunders, who will just guide you to your next level of development. And it's actually more, how do I say this? If your mentor is actually, it should be an enlightened mentor, not just any mentor, an enlightened mentor. And not just an enlightened mentor, I would recommend have a spiritual mentor. If your mentor is a spiritual mentor, this is such a huge blessing. Pay any price to be with a spiritual mentor who will really help you in your spiritual path and just realize who you are and why you're here and
Mhm.
what your higher purpose is. So as early as now, with those youth, the early 20s, or even the ones in my age bracket, again, I'm 39, turning 40, or even those who are You're never too old to have a mentor. And aside from having a mentor, have an apprentice so that you can transfer the talents, the wisdom, the insight that you have gathered or accumulated in your life. So that's tip number 7.
Thank you, Lesley, for those wonderful tips. I think that's why we really brought you here because you understand that, to have a mentor will help you reach your next level faster. So we're bringing in people like you who are experts in their field so that people can learn directly from someone who's been there. It's really different to learn about, for example, if you want to learn business, it's difficult to learn about business by reading the book rather than going to someone and interviewing someone who knows about the trade and who knows the actual do's and don'ts that you use. That will really, bring you from this level to the next because you get to harvest the wisdom and respect in it. So this is some of the things we advocate for our youth programs. I talked in the International Convention on Higher Consciousness about wisdom in youth, which is this new mindset that youth should learn wisdom as early and as soon as possible because it can help them avoid a lot of their mistakes. So that's why I asked you, what did you wish you learned when you were younger so that we could also, absorb and assimilate what you said and hopefully apply it to our lives. So again, everyone, this is Lesley Geronimo, sharing 7 tips, and please do get in touch with her if you ever need to maybe go for a discovery session because she's a life coach, and she's also a business mentor. So she has discovery sessions. You want to maybe explain that one?
Oh, sure. So for those who are searching for high truth in life or just need some mentoring or whatever it is that you want to explore in your life right now, you can contact me. We can have a discovery session and see where you're at and what your next should be. So just contact me or contact Vic here so that she can let me know. And I look forward to starting your journey with me.
All right, thank you, Lesley. For those just coming in, we are just ending the live soon, but we are so happy that you can get to know Lesley. And if you want to watch this, it'll be available on my Instagram and on Lesley's Instagram. And the 7 things she shared with us today was first, know thyself. Second, balance your 5 key areas of your life. And then 3, have a purpose or North Star. 4, develop the 3 key virtues for self-mastery. And then we have 5, discover the different power centers of your body and how to activate them. And we have 6, understand and follow the universal laws. And 7, have a mentor and eventually have an apprentice. As they say, as Confucius said, show me and I'll remember. Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I'll remember. Involve me and I will understand. And as we've learned, you teach it so that you can master it and you can hone it and make that a part of you and your own wisdom. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Lesley, for being here.
Thank you, Vic, for having me. Bye.
Bye.